Well, good afternoon. You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Click your live stream tab or watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. I'm Celeste Giordano, your show host. We're the Global Legacy and Wealth Building for the next hour. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. We're also on the Apple platforms. And last but not least, our disclaimer. The topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG Network. And thank you for your continued support. And thank you, Penny Rogers and our board at WCEG Network for this amazing platform that we get to give life to the community and host amazing people like the guests we have today on Global Legacy and Wealth Building. And today, I would like to welcome Callie D'Angelo and Renee. Renee, you got a hyper name right there. I apologize. Excuse me.
It's complicated, not really, but it's Renee Byrd-Lewis. So
exactly. I was trying to get my phone up here so I could read that, and it was giving me difficulty. Anyways, but we are just so glad to have both of you ladies here today. We have a great show that we're going to get to talk about. Callie and what she does, and she has a business, as well as Renee, you with the Gwinnett Coalition. And then we're going to come back together with some amazing things that you guys have put together. And it's going to be a very informative show here today. And I hope that each and every one of you are doing well. You both are in the Lawrenceville, Georgia, Gwinnett County area today. I'm coming to you live from the Cincinnati, Ohio area, Northern Kentucky. And it's such a blessing to have you. And Callie, what I'd love to do is I'd love to get started, and I'd love to introduce you and read your bio. And then when I get through, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Renee. But we're going to break this into 3 separate interviews here today for our audience and listeners. And Callie D'Angelo, IOM, is the founder and principal of Collective Edge, LLC. Connecting collaboration and creativity. Collective Edge offers a comprehensive approach to advancing nonprofit priorities by bringing together both consulting plus contracting. It supports organizations by blending employee engagement, fractional expertise, and ideas plus execution of an initiative. Driven by impact, it primarily serves chambers of commerce, nonprofits, and professional and trade associations. This innovative model empowers NPOs to advance priorities with efficiency. Prior to evolving into an entrepreneur, Callie spent nearly the last 20 years in the nonprofit organization management industry, where she worked directly for Chamber of Commerce across the state of Georgia. As a seasoned executive, she is skilled in professional development, events and programming, sales and service, member recruitment and retention, benefits and onboarding, coaching and consulting, international travel, and volunteer engagement. Driven by impact, being a business owner enables her to pursue passion projects while utilizing her expertise while expanding her impact both nationally and internationally. And Callie, it is so wonderful to have you here with us today. What an accolade of many things that you have done over the years throughout the state of Georgia with nonprofits and the local community. And we thank you. We're honored and privileged to have you on our show today.
Thank you so much, Celeste. It's my honor to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. And we have a great thing lined up. And I'm going to go ahead and read Renee's bio here because she's president and CEO, serves as president and CEO of the Gwinnett Coalition, an organization dedicated to leading systems change to address Gwinnett County's most complex social issues. Nearly 3 decades of private and public sector experience fuels a diverse portfolio of capabilities in community developments, social responsibility, and communications. Previous roles include Vice President of Advancement and Strategic Communications at Georgia Gwinnett College, Director of Community Relation at Cisco Systems and Scientific Atlanta, and senior consultant for nonprofits seeking to increase organizational capacity. Ms. Byrd-Lewis is adept at transcending industry and functional boundaries and leveraging an extensive network to achieve desired outcomes. A Gwinnett County resident since 1995, Ms. Byrd-Lewis is an engaged leader with deep community knowledge. She is a past board chair of Leadership Gwinnett Foundation and serves as a board member of the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce and Gwinnett Medical Center Foundation. Ms. Byrd-Lewis earned a master's degree from Georgia State University and dual bachelor's degrees in psychology and sociology from Emory University, and resides in Beaufort with her husband and 2 sons. And Renee, what an honor and privilege to have you, as well as Callie, on our show here of Global Legacy and Wealth Building. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Absolutely. So how are both of you ladies doing today?
Awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah, excited about this interview.
Absolutely. So we have a great agenda for our audience here today. And Callie, we're going to get to, I think about, or we're going to talk about you and your collective edge first. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so we're going to jump right in here today. So I want you to tell us a little bit about your business, and then we're going to marry all this together. But tell us a little bit about Collective Edge, please.
Yes, thank you so much for asking. And again, really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with y'all today. So just a little bit about me. My background is Chamber of Commerce and nonprofit organization management. And I wanted to enhance my impact and expand my influence on a national and international level. So that's what led to the creation of Collective Edge, which I launched in 2023 and hit the ground running. So it's been a great experience. Collective Edge, essentially, it connects collaboration and creativity. And as mentioned earlier, it offers a comprehensive approach by bringing together both consulting and contracting. So when I launched my business, what I was noticing was a gap in the consulting space. So a lot of organizations or consultants will come in, they'll consult, and that's fantastic. But then the staff of the organization that they're consulting for is left holding the bag to implement whatever the initiative may be. So this is the blending of both of those things. That way it offers a turnkey approach for clients. Additionally, it supports organizations by blending employee engagement, fractional expertise, and ideation and execution of initiative. So when I get started with any project, it's very important to do a lot of fact finding. So I'm meeting with the staff, I'm meeting with volunteer boards, touching base with community members, and really trying to get a holistic approach of who that organization is and what their goals are and how we can tie everything in together.
Absolutely. So in other words, you're working with nonprofits, is that correct, Callie? You go in as like a consultant for nonprofits?
That's correct. So a lot of the organizations I work for are classified as a nonprofit. Some of them are straight nonprofits providing direct services to the community. A lot of them are association based as well. So whether that be a chamber of commerce or a trade or professional organization.
All right. So when you go into a company like that or a nonprofit, is this something that you go in there for just a couple of times, or is it like for months or weeks, or how does that work? If
That's a
somebody
very
was
good
in,
question.
if somebody wanted to bring you into their nonprofit to exponentially grow their nonprofit, what would that look like?
Well, it's very custom. So it's not a one size fits all. So it really
Right.
depends on the goals and objectives of the nonprofit or organization that I'm working with. It can be project based, and that can be a short term thing, or it can be, initiative based, something that we're standing up that is going to take a lot of resources and time, and that could be a year to a 2-year project. So it really just depends on the individual needs of the organization.
Okay. And for our audience and our listeners that are listening today, please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat from the live stream, and we'll be glad to answer those questions for you. And again, Callie, tell our audience and listeners the name of your company and how they could get a hold of you right here in the beginning, because we're going to do this 2 or 3 times. Okay. How can our audience and listeners, reach out to you?
Okay, great. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. So my name is Callie D'Angelo, and I'm the founder and principal of Collective Edge. My website is collectiveedgeagency.com, and you can reach me via email at collectiveedgeagency, Callie at collectiveedgeagency.com.
Very good. Thank you very much. So how has your background prepared you for this work, Callie?
Well, I'm a former chamber executive, true and true. So I've been in the nonprofit space for 20 years. So it's technically classified as nonprofit organization management. So as mentioned, when you were teeing me up in the beginning with your very nice introduction, I've worked for nonprofits all over the state of Georgia via a chamber of commerce. So all the way from Statesboro to Gwinnett to Tybee Island to Port Wentworth to the Savannah Chamber. So I've got a lot of experience, working directly as a nonprofit executive. So all of those organizations were different sizes. They all represented different communities. So I've worked in metropolitan communities. I've worked in rural communities. As you know, the needs are very different based on the community that you're serving. And additionally, I've worked in a variety of roles within those organizations too. So I started out as an executive assistant. Technically, I started out as an intern and then an executive's assistant, and then worked all my way up to being a VP of member services on the executive level team. So I've literally worked, been the first concierge impression at a front desk, all the way to programs and events, to sales and service, to executive level where I'm working on employee development and so forth. So I've got a lot of well-rounded experience, we'll say, and direct experience in the nonprofit industry.
Absolutely. And you did a key word that is something that's coming up in my blogs that I do every week on Thursday. And every year between March and April, I talk a lot about interns. And you brought that word up. And from a perspective where you were an intern first, let's give a plug to all our audience listeners, whether they're listening or maybe they have a young adult that's in college that's looking for intern work. How important is it to reach out and be open-minded about hiring an intern, and also for an intern to have an open mind and open heart of going and working for some of these organizations?
That's a fantastic question. And, I'll be honest, when I was about to be done with school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So, I knew that a chamber connected, all the leaders in the community, whether that be, legislative leaders or small business leaders. And I thought maybe if I do my internship there, someone will rub off on me and I will know what I want to be when I grow up. So that's how I got started in things. But what I will tell you is that the ladies at the Statesboro Chamber who I interned with, they really cultivated me as a professional and as, personally as well. They really poured into me for a few years. And I have to tell you, it was such a substantial part of my career journey. So it was a fantastic experience. And they opened my eyes, to the nonprofit world, serving businesses. And it was a wonderful experience. So I would definitely encourage you all. I know it takes a little bit of extra effort as a business owner, to pour into an intern because they may not be as seasoned as someone that's been in the workforce for a period of time, but you will definitely reap, what you put into it. And, cultivating youth and, growing them, especially in the nonprofit sector. It's so important that we light people's fires and that we keep them engaged so they'll stay in the nonprofit industry. So if you have that capacity, definitely would encourage you to work with interns.
Absolutely. And these interns right here, they're really, really smart, and they have an open mind and open heart, and they come with some great, fresh ideas. It's almost like, new blood is the lifeblood of a business, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit. So, definitely. And if you're an intern looking, now you need to be, looking now, putting some feelers out there, building relationships. Hopefully you have some people that that are attending some chamber events or go as a guest, because almost every chamber will allow you to go as a guest and you just get introduced to some people.
Yes, right, completely agree
on that. All right. So thank you for that plug for our interns and for businesses and nonprofits looking for interns, Callie. I appreciate that. What makes your organization so unique and different?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, so I hate to, touch on it again, but it truly is unique because of the blending of both the consulting and the contract work. So the blending of that, really does provide a nonprofit or an association with a turnkey initiative, whatever that may be. We know, as nonprofit professionals, bandwidth and capacity is always, a struggle. So there may be something that you want to get off the ground and you could run with it once it's developed, but having that time to develop a high caliber program or initiative, is sometimes a struggle. So that's where I come in. I can come in, work collaboratively with your team and the community, find out what your needs are, and create something that's custom for your organization. Also, the collaboration is really unique to my organization. I firmly believe in an inclusive approach, and it offers a comprehensive outcome. So I love coming in, working with the team, finding out what makes the organization tick, how all the products and services connect with each other. Because at the end of the day, when I leave as a consultant, you're going to be the one left to implement it. So I get it ready and it's turnkey, but you'll be the one running with it. So that collaboration is very, very important, and it ensures that there's a seamless transfer of knowledge when the time comes when I'm leaving you with the initiative.
Absolutely, Callie. And so, one of your ideal clients, would they be somebody that's seasoned in the nonprofit area, or is it somebody new starting out, or somebody, is there a definition of an ideal client?
Really, it runs the gamut. I can do startup work if people are looking to kind of, form their organization. How do they market their organization? If they're more seasoned and they have, a very clear direction of one thing that they want created, I can help with that as well. But
Okay.
oftentimes, nonprofits come in, they say, this is the outcome I want, but I actually help them develop their scope of work. So I certainly can work with, a nonprofit at any stage.
Absolutely. So you may have covered some of this, but what are your focus areas? Have you covered those, or do you have a few extras that you want to share?
I've covered them, briefly in some of our communication, and it kind of is very broad. So I'll just hit the high notes here. But events and programs, I love being creative, and I love implementing programs as well. That's something that I'm really solid in. So everything from auditing your existing events to seeing if there's mission alignment and see if they're productive on the revenue side, all the way from concepting, programs, events to execution. Also, I really enjoy working in the outreach stage and forming partnerships and helping you do that within the community. DE&I, revenue, sponsorships, membership recruitment and retention. That's also something I really enjoy. I'm a stickler for customer service, so I love the service element and helping define what the experience is for the end user. So that can be all the way to a member if you're an association-based organization, or to your client as a nonprofit. Let's say you're in, housing insecurity and you're supporting folks and you have, an apartment, a transitional apartment. What is that experience for your client? Because although they're receiving benefits, they are ultimately your client. So I love working on experiential things as well. Have a background in small business consulting, minority business support, volunteer initiatives. So whether that be your ambassadors or your board, also, revenue campaigns, membership campaigns, workforce, so all the employee things. So I love, crafting job descriptions and making sure that your job descriptions are communicating who your organization is and is reaching the right people that would be, a great fit for your organization. Recruitment of employees and being strategic around that. Onboarding your employees, because that is very important. That's the initial experience that they have with your organization and is an important part of employee retention, and then development of employees too.
Very good. Also, like Sarah Poe and I are the co-founders of Women in Community Impact, and so one of the things that's on our forecast is that we want to have a gala. So, do you help nonprofits with galas?
I do. I actually have an event planning agency as well, because I started two businesses at once, because why not? So yes, I help with nonprofit events through Collective Edge, but also have, an event agency called Dialogue as well. So yes, very
Okay.
experienced in that.
Very good. So my last question for you, Callie, is why are you passionate about supporting nonprofits? Because
You know,
I can feel it when it comes from the heart, it goes to the heart, and I can feel your heart.
thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I think it starts from a young age. I was very fortunate to have a mother who was truly exceptional, and she ran a nonprofit. She was in the art space, so she was a ballet teacher, and then she had a nonprofit called the Art and Youth Project, and this was back, gosh, early '90s. So this was a relatively cutting edge concept for that time. She was certainly living in the future, that's for sure. But the Art and Youth Project, what it did is it brought together artists from different disciplines. So whether that be dance or drawing or painting or lighting, and staging, it would bring together all these different artists, and it would go to schools that were, probably not as fortunate as some. And it would bring those experiences to those schools and those students. And it would teach them about the different art disciplines because they may have not have had that exposure otherwise. So, I attribute all of it really to my mom because she was truly exceptional, still is. And, she lit my fire for service and, supporting nonprofits and making a difference. But she also, showed me that you can align your passion and purpose and you can create a career out of helping others. So it is, so yeah, all her. And it caught
Well,
on. And I didn't even connect the dots until recently.
uh,
When you launch a business and you write about yourself, you're like, wait, why do I do what I do?
well, and you just said another key point that's very near and dear to my heart, Callie, is it was instilled in you from your mother. And today we have a lot of people that never grew up with that opportunity to serve in the nonprofit area, let alone serve, you know, nonprofit organizations that were doing work with homeless women or children or any of those things. And so it's so important for our audience and listeners, because I talk about this a lot and I do some teaching on it, of how important it is for our younger generation as parents and older mentors to instill serving others first, because that's not a skill set that's necessarily taught all the time.
That's
So,
absolutely correct. Yes.
so any comment that you'd like to add to that to close this section out about serving
Yeah.
others and reaching into our youth?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's impactful and it makes a mark. And the Art and Youth Project, was born out of a need that we had personally. She ran a nonprofit. We were not well to do by any means. And we were given opportunities because she would barter with other people. And that concept kind of caught on. And she's like, if I can do this for my children, can I do this for someone else's children? So I think even though sometimes it's a struggle, and you may not have much, there's always someone that has less. And I
Yes.
think that servant's heart makes you grateful, for what you have. And it, catches on and sticks with you for, your lifetime. So anytime you can do something like that, it doesn't have to be a financial commitment, but, just kindness is service as well. So yeah, I definitely would encourage it if you can.
Absolutely. And the Women in Community Impact, several times a year, we are very open to involving the youth and having our members bring youth and do certain youth projects, because we want to involve the youth of our community, to help and to give back and to serve. And so this is so important. So Callie, could you please, for our audience and listeners, give us the name of your company and how people can get a hold of you before I move on to Miss Renee?
Yes, so Collective Edge, and you can reach me. Probably the easiest way is via email, which is Callie, CALLY at collectiveedgeagency.com.
Very good. Thank you so much, Callie. I appreciate that. All right, Miss Renee, are you ready?
I'm ready. And I must say, Callie, hearing about your mom explains so much about you and what I've learned from you over the past 8 months that we've been working together. So that was a delightful story. Thank you for sharing.
Yes,
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely, Renee. And thank you for saying that, because like I said, I could tell the passion and and sometimes it isn't until later that we realize these, because that's another story for later for me that I realized about serving. I grew up never serving. I wasn't really taught about serving, but now the second half of my life, it's all about serving others first. So it's a very emotional and touching story, Callie, and you have a message to tell.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, Miss Renee.
Okay.
I'm excited to learn about Gwinnett Coalition. Could you tell our audience and listeners a little bit about Gwinnett Coalition?
Sure. So the Gwinnett Coalition is a 33-year-old nonprofit that is serving the second largest county in the state of Georgia. And we are approaching 1 million residents in terms of just our county. I'm sharing this because I think it's important for your listeners who don't know Lawrenceville, Georgia, to understand the context in which we're operating and serving. We're located northeast of Atlanta, in the most diverse community in the Southeast. We've been majority minority for several years. And just to give you a flavor, we've got 14% Asian, 28% Black, 34% white, 13% other, and 11 that identify as two or more of those categories. So we really are sort of a mini United Nations. Our public school system, Gwinnett County Public Schools, is the 11th largest in the nation, and our students speak over 100 native languages. So it really feels like you're walking into a mini United Nations when you come to Gwinnett. So in our very dynamic and diverse community, the coalition aspires to strategically align leadership, resources, and systems, especially within the nonprofit community, but also across other sectors, to foster equity and prosperity for all who live in our community.
Wow. Yeah, I had no idea that the Gwinnett Coalition has been there for 33 years.
Yeah, there's a
I'm
story behind that, but we have been. It was born in 1991.
okay. And we moved to Gwinnett County in 1991.
Okay.
So very much so. So what is your mission? What is the Gwinnett Coalition or your mission?
Yeah, so every day our team wakes up thinking about advancing our mission, which is to lead systems change that advances equity and addresses complex social issues. And we do that through our 3 pillars of work. And I'll just tell you a little bit of that to set additional context. We convene and we collaborate and we bring together leaders and citizens from across the county to address complex issues, things that cannot be solved by just one nonprofit alone. So for instance, one of our pillars is focused on health equity. And in this work, we're increasing access to affordable and quality healthcare resources. And we're also empowering residents to self-advocate through health literacy education. A lot of our residents may come from other countries. Their language proficiency in English may or may not be what ours is. And so really breaking down how do they access the services is important. We also have a pillar that's focused on mental and behavioral health. In this pillar, we champion the well-being of our youth, and we are building a resilient Gwinnett through a community-based approach to trauma prevention and intervention. And for those of us who have come through the pandemic and out of the pandemic, and we've seen our kids, and many of us even as adults, deal with depression and anxiety. And I mean, that was an adverse experience. So we're really focused on that as well as a future prevention for our youth. And then the third area is a new one. It's called nonprofit capacity building. And this pillar is designed to strengthen the nonprofit ecosystem by connecting and equipping nonprofits with resources to increase operational efficiency and effectiveness. So those 3 pillars really capture our work and our mission that we wake up thinking about every day about advancing equity and addressing complex issues.
So let me ask you something, Renee. So
Okay.
the coalition, so how, as a resident of Gwinnett County, how do we access, or what are the benefits of the Gwinnett Coalition to somebody that lives in Gwinnett County or has a nonprofit or a business in Gwinnett County? I mean, do we reach out to you? I mean, tell me more, please.
Yeah. So, there's ways to engage. If you are, for instance, because our work is really structured to engage partners in it, right? So the coalition is not a direct service provider. We are not an organization that is delivering food to residents who are hungry. We do
Right.
not issue utility assistance, money to help bridge the gap if you are about to have your lights cut off. We do not place the like children and, deal with foster care and things like that. So we're not a direct service provider, but what we are is more of that strategic partner with institutions in the community, like government and the hospitals and public health and the mental health, and especially the nonprofit sector, because we can work better together and leverage our resources to advance some of this work. If you want to engage in any of our three pillars, if you are a mental health provider, for instance, we would love to have you engaged in our Resilient Gwinnett initiative, because you offer something that is probably aligned with our overarching goals to build resilience within our youth through ACEs intervention and prevention. If you are someone who is working in the area of trying to engage residents and get them screened for various things, right? We would love to partner with you because we can help to educate that population and to help them become better advocates for themselves. And then nonprofit capacity building is really the way that the nonprofit sector will engage with us, because our goal here is to build an association of sorts where nonprofits engage with us, we engage with them, and we know together we can better apply those resources to the community and to these really broad overreaching initiatives that, again, it takes more than one nonprofit to solve. In fact, it takes more than one sector to solve.
Right.
So I often liken our work here in the community development space to what we have in our community, which is an economic development initiative that's been in place for about 25 years, right? And the business community invests in that because there's a direct, I think, economic value, right, to building prosperity in our community. Well, I would say the community development work that we are doing at the coalition in partnership with other organizations is the flip side of that, right? It's community development. It's helping to the residents that are not as fortunate, they're more vulnerable, they're uninsured or underinsured, that we lift by helping them become better citizens, right? And
right.
bundling these services, and that sort of the high tide raises all boats kind of theory. So, but just reaching out to us, we'd love to have a conversation if any of those three pillars resonate with you, and we would be happy to have further dialogue and pull you right into our work.
Absolutely. And for our audience and listeners, give them the name of the company and how they can reach out to you, please, Renee.
Sure. So it's the Gwinnett Coalition at www.gwinnettcoalition.org. And my email address is R as in Renee, Byrd, BYRD .Lewis, LEWIS at gwinnettcoalition.org.
Very good. Thank you. So how has it evolved over the past few years?
Yeah, so this is an exciting story. So we have been around a long time, more than 30 years. And the founding executive director actually she came on board and sort of birthed the organization out of a community-wide strategic plan at the time. And she served for more than 3 decades. When the Gwinnett Coalition was created, our community, Gwinnett County, was largely rural. It was agriculture based, and it was primarily comprised of white residents. Well, in the 1990s, there was a tremendous surge in people moving to Gwinnett County. We experienced very rapid growth, an influx of people from all around the world. And in a very short time, our population grew from 20,000 residents to nearly the million today, from nearly all white to the very diverse and dynamic community that we have today. So in 2021, I found this opening to succeed the founding executive director. And I essentially, when I came in, was charged with assessing how the coalition could be better at serving the community of today, right? Because we had been around for a long time, it really just needed sort of a reboot or a re-envisioning of what we needed to do to better serve the community. And so I had to kind of do evaluation of all our programs. We found some duplications that existed in other organizations that had just sort of cropped up over the years, and with growth in our community too, because there's more needs to serve. And and I was tasked with just identifying better ways to serve the community. So with the help of local leaders and residents and a little bit of strategic planning, we came to a consensus around the 3 pillars that we now have, and we formally launched that body of work last November of 2023. And Callie was part of our, speaking to the event side of the house, Callie was our consultant who actually helped us with that launch. And we had just a great day with the mayor and the county chairwoman and the Chamber of Commerce presidents and a lot of business leaders coming to hear about our new work. And then also a nonprofit party in the late afternoon, evening, where we welcomed all of the nonprofits to learn about it as well. So.
And by the way, I was a part of that party that night and appreciate the invitation. And it was a phenomenal thing to go in there and to see the diversity and see all the things that were on the wall and what people could go and brainstorm and put things that were important to them. It was a phenomenal thing. Met a lot of great people, made some great connections while I was there as well. So my hat's off to you guys. You're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you. It did look like Gwinnett County in the room. It was great.
Yeah, it really was. So how does it serve as the backbone organization collaborating in the community?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we're not a direct service provider. We position ourselves more as like a strategic partner with sort of institutions, and then also trying to be the voice of the nonprofit community. So, and we address issues that not one, if you're a food service provider, typically, here's the bottom line. Typically, a resident, if they're going to a food pantry to get food, they have more than food needs, right? They may have a mental health issue. They may be facing eviction and they are, struggling to make ends meet. They may be living out of their car, have been doing that for a while. And in fact, we've got like 2,000 students in Gwinnett County Public Schools that are living in their cars with family members. It's crazy. So it's again, these really complex and deep systems kinds of issues. So as we in our role are really trying to have that head above the fray, right? Because if you're a service provider, you are dealing with what is that resident's need right now, right? And you've got to serve them because it's sometimes very, very urgent and it has to do with safety and that kind of thing. So we're trying to have that long-term view and really work on things that are going to have systems change, long-lasting effect in our community. So a backbone organization, we are a nonprofit, but we also work in collaboration with all these other entities. And it's just this notion of different stakeholders coming together to lend their expertise and their resources to tackle a really complex social challenge. And we do that in a way that we think is bringing and accomplishing a healthier and more equitable future for our citizens. So, for example, we have a health literacy initiative that I talked about, and that's in partnership with public health, in partnership with CDC Foundation, and then nonprofits that are actually serving in the healthcare space to help address health equity in our community. Our Resilient Gwinnett initiative is the mental and behavioral health initiative around our youth from ages 0 to 26. And we're the local collaborative of a broader state of Georgia initiative called Resilient Georgia, which aims to develop trauma-informed communities and prevent adverse childhood experiences and build resilience in our youth. So those are just 2 examples where it's not just a coalition. We have, in the case of Resilient Gwinnett County Public Schools is at the table, DFACS is at the table, public health is at the table, our Viewpoint Health, our mental health group, our child advocacy center that deals with sexual assault in our children is at the table, and other serving organizations. So we bring those together to create a common goal, a common agenda, and then we just are chipping out away with strategies and actions and activities that help to drive change in our community. And again, that's long term. So that's a little bit about serving as the backbone organization.
Absolutely. And, and our Women in Community Impact, we're more of a nonprofit where we help and serve other organizations like Home of Hope, that's a shelter for homeless women and children, Wellspring Living, that, dealing with sex trafficking. We deal with Creative Community Services where, where foster children are very near and dear to our heart, Positive Impact. We love serving the community and helping these organizations because there's such a need for these nonprofits to have support people. that do that. And you mentioned about having 2,000 children living in their cars with family. And I'll never forget several years ago that I had gone to the grocery store early in the morning, and I don't usually park right up front. I park a little ways out, and I noticed that there was a young mother with children living in their car, and I had ran down to the McDonald's and got a warm breakfast and brought it back to her, and the tears that came on their face. And, there's a lot of legitimate situations out there. And for our audience and listeners, carry some $5 McDonald's gift cards or things like that in your car, because this is a way that you can help and serve some of these people because they need a hot meal or something like that. So I usually don't give the money. I give the gift cards to the Chick-fil-A, the McDonald's, or whatever. I'll always have those gift cards with me. And there's a dire need for that.
Absolutely. Yep. It's everywhere. And housing is such a critical issue, not just in our community, but really across the nation, affordable housing.
Absolutely. And we do have some amazing organizations in Gwinnett County that is working and helping with this. And I met some of the most, amazing people. How has the community demonstrated a need for the Gwinnett Coalition's new nonprofit capacity building initiative? And what is the why?
Yeah. So during the pandemic, our community responded in very great ways. I mean, the entire nonprofit community, along with county government and the cities and churches, came together to really address the needs, right? The crisis that was on our hands. So whether that was delivering food to families or sharing the distribution of PPE at the time, right? Remember how we couldn't get masks and hand sanitizer, providing access to technology because the schools, on a day's notice had converted to, at-home learning, right? And some of our kids don't have internet connections or a laptop to work on. So we all came together in a very productive and positive way. And what we learned was that response to our community really was a matter of collaboration and communicating and aligning our efforts. And we made a huge impact. And what we also knew was that needs were still great. Like, as great of a job we did, the needs were still greater than what we could serve. And so what we've learned from that is that we need to have that kind of collaboration and communication, but we need to build it in a sustainable way, because the way we were doing it was great for a crisis, but not good for the long term. And so that's what this whole new pillar is all about, is really remembering that what we saw work firsthand in real time was connecting and working together and collaborating, and we can have far greater impact when we do that together. And that's what our new pillar is based on.
And that is so true. One of the great things that I love is the openness and the willingness of the local businesses in the community. This will be our 8th year doing a Mother's Day meal at Home of Hope. And so we used to come in there and we would collect donations and money, and we would go in there and cook the food and things of this nature. Well, then we started collaborating with some of the local restaurants. And, now we have things like, Longhorns that creates some of the meals for us. Olive Garden donates the salads and the breadsticks. Tacos and Tequilas will give us the appetizers for these things. I know this, like, Special Needs Bakery does
the
all
Needs Bakery.
Special does all the desserts for us. And what a joy to bring all those collaborative partners together to give a meal, for Mother's Day for these homeless women and children, because, that's a horrible feeling for a mother to be in a homeless shelter, and she's not there because, she chooses to be there. She's there because she had to do the right thing for her and her children. And they're mostly coming from an abusive situation. They're good people. They're not bad people. So, the collaboration in the community is we have a great group of people that collaborate and serve one another. And I think that's so important, to come together to do that for the greater good.
Yep, agreed.
We've heard the catchphrase of capacity building, but what is it exactly in relation to nonprofits?
Pretty simply, it's the resources that a nonprofit needs today and tomorrow to advance their vision and their mission. This can take the form of things like workshops around leadership or governance or finance, marketing communications, volunteer management, et cetera. But we also know that creating connectivity for nonprofit professionals and the organizations that they represent is critical. So in Gwinnett, we know there's a big gap in knowing what nonprofits are out there, who are they serving, what are their priorities, what are the opportunities for partnership and collaboration. And so capacity building occurs both at the individual organizational level, and that it also occurs across the sector when we pull nonprofits together.
Absolutely. So do you do any kind of teaching for nonprofits that they can come to you for some expertise?
We are going to. We have not yet launched that, but that's part of the plan. And Callie's done a lot of research around that and gotten feedback from the local community. So we intend to launch like a learning and development series to help support and bolster, hone the skills, right, of nonprofit professionals.
Absolutely. And just Callie and Renee, just for Women in Community Impact, 4 years before the pandemic, we did 3 or 4 workshops for nonprofits to come in, because we have a bank vice president, we have a CPA on our board, we have health and nutrition on our board, and we brought the nonprofits together because they didn't know what they didn't know. We brought attorneys in and things of this nature, and it was amazing to see where these nonprofits are today, that when they were like this 4 or 5 years ago and just starting and didn't have all the education that they needed. And I'm not saying they did that all because of us, but the fact of it is there is a need to help educate these nonprofits and to give them direction so they can grow and exponentially help and serve other people. So I'm glad to hear that. How is the Gwinnett Coalition building capacity for nonprofits?
So this ties to the last question a little bit, and I'll just give a little bit before we hand it back over to Callie to kind of close this out. But we're working on some early priorities, right? And they're focused on creating space and making connections for the nonprofits to come together. So one is a nonprofit directory. We're actively reviewing lists of nonprofits, confirming contact information, organizational priorities, and we're going to include that in a complementary directory that is then offered to and hopefully used by the nonprofits in Gwinnett County. We're also creating physical spaces where nonprofit leaders can connect and build relationships and trust, right? I mean, that you can't really share ideas and work well together if you don't know who it is that you're working with. So trust and relationship is a really big piece of this. Yes. And we know that when we develop that there are going to be innovative ideas, there's going to be increased problem solving and just greater effectiveness all the way around. And that's actually what the data shows as well around nonprofit capacity building. So to that end, we're going to be offering some peer-to-peer groups. And our inaugural 501 Connect, which is our networking series, launches this Thursday. And in the chat, I put the invitation. So anyone local, I hope you click on that and you register. But at the end of the day, this whole effort that we're working on with nonprofit capacity building is intended to provide foundational support to ensure the sustainability and the growth of our nonprofit sector. We're excited about our plan to launch this nonprofit association, and just couldn't be more delighted that Callie has been at the helm leading us down this path to success. So with that, I hand it back over to you, Celeste, and to Callie, I think, to close this out.
Absolutely. And Renee, thank you so much for that wealth of knowledge for our audience and our listeners. I learned a lot of things here today. I had no idea that you guys have been around for 33 years and the things that you're doing. I love that you're expanding your vision and a much bigger picture for our community, because we are growing in leaps and bounds. And I also love the fact that you're considering and you're working with the nonprofit sector right there, because we have a lot of great organizations with some leadership and guidance. They can even be better than what they already are. And we appreciate that.
Yeah,
so thank
you. You're welcome. And if there's anyone listening today that wants to invest in our work going forward, especially as it relates to the nonprofit capacity building, we welcome that. And I would love to have a conversation with you about why this is so valuable. So thank you, Celeste, for having me.
Yes, Renee, thank you. Okay, Miss Callie, we're coming back into the last 10, 12 minutes of the hour. How excited are you to work on this project? I know you're excited. I'm excited.
I'm so thrilled.
I think Callie's
And
frozen time.
what's that? Did you say I'm frozen?
Uh, you're okay now. You're okay now.
Okay,
There was a
okay,
little delay.
okay, great.
So how
To answer,
excited are you to work on this project?
very, very excited. When Renee reached out to me, and the Gwinnett Coalition was my first client. So I really appreciate the confidence that they placed in me and the opportunity to work on something that was so impactful, because they are a stellar group. So I was thrilled. I mean, to have your first client be something that impacts at such a large scale is really truly a dream. You know, we have at a minimum 1,500 nonprofits in Gwinnett. So if you can just multiply that impact by residents served, the impact is huge.
Absolutely. And what has been your strategy in developing a nonprofit association that would truly serve the needs of all Gwinnett nonprofits?
Yeah, so the Gwinnett Coalition was fantastic and really investing in the time and resources to do a lot of research, because we did not want to make decisions in a silo. So we've done a few things. There's an organization called the National Council of Nonprofits, and it's a trade organization typically for statewide nonprofit associations. So one of the first things that we did was reach out to the National Council of Nonprofits. We identified, different statewide organizations. Due to the size of Gwinnett, we really didn't have a peer organization on a local level. So we wanted to reach out to best-in-class statewide nonprofit associations and see what they were doing and what we could learn from them. As Renee mentioned, Gwinnett County is one of the most diverse counties in the Southeast. So when we were selecting states to benchmark, we wanted to make sure those were also the most diverse states in the country. So reached out to them, did a lot of research. We also did focus groups with our local community. So we had about 6 different focus groups comprised of a variety of different nonprofits. Definitely wanted to make sure that we were diverse. So we had a bunch of different perspectives in the room. So we made sure we were diverse by the size of nonprofits. Whether they have, they're a smaller nonprofit, which still makes a very big footprint, or whether they were a large nonprofit that may operate in our community in the Metro Atlanta or nationally. So we definitely wanted to make sure we had that feedback. We also considered their cause and who they're serving, and wanted to make sure that we had representation there. And then also their tenure and how long they've been active. So all the way from ideation of a nonprofit to the startup stage to a more seasoned nonprofit to a mature nonprofit. So definitely wanted to make sure that we had a variety of perspectives. We did surveys and we had hundreds of responses, which I thought was fantastic and really further
Yes.
demonstrates the need for what we're creating, because, no one really loves to take a survey. So the fact that we had hundreds of responses was fantastic. And then lastly, the event that you all mentioned as well was an opportunity for us to solicit for feedback. So we had the preview party, and we took everything that we learned from the different, research we did and the conversations we had for the focus groups, and then also the survey results. And we broke it out into, some key areas. And then we asked people to help us prioritize what was most impactful for their nonprofit.
Absolutely. And you guys are doing a phenomenal job with that, Callie and Renee. I'm just so impressed with both of you, your leadership, and all the things that are available to people through the Gwinnett Coalition. So, Callie, what are some of the top challenges that area of nonprofits face right now?
Yes, thank you for asking. And these are combined into kind of different buckets, but I'll unpack them very briefly, some of them, as I know we're nearing the end of our time. But adequate infrastructure, so that could be all the way from transportation, getting goods and services to people, or people to the goods and services, or that could speak to, physical locations, whether it's a brand new location and, that a nonprofit will have, or scaling and expanding into a larger facility. Capacity building, which I think, based on our previous conversations, we all understand what that is. Equity and access, employee benefits. So being competitive, with the for-profit sector, and making sure that, there's 401k and there's insurance, and that you can really recruit and retain top talent. Financial backing, that is the number one thing that every nonprofit needs, regardless of size or scope. The public perception. So what I mean by that is, oftentimes nonprofits are viewed as charities, but not truly for the impact that they make in our community. Our school system is fantastic. Our nonprofits help support that success through language access and through making sure that we're reaching first generation students. Areas couldn't recruit and retain, businesses at a large scale if we had a large homeless problem that was, very visible. So it's all the collaborative effort of all these entities doing really fantastic work that, creates a very vibrant community in Gwinnett. Service
Absolutely.
duplication. Yeah, sorry, I'm flying through these things.
I'm just telling you, I mean, you're just rattling it off just like
I'm going
that.
with it. Going with it. Service duplication is a big issue, and we're hoping to circumvent that by the directory that Renee mentioned as well. But it's a challenge if the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, because a nonprofit may be created because the person created it just doesn't know that another one exists that does it.
Right.
It also puts a strain on the funding sources as well. And then volunteer shortages, we're finding that volunteers are not coming back as strong as they were before COVID.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. So how will the Gwinnett Coalition combat those challenges?
So advocacy and alignment of the industry, a centralized database to the nonprofit directory that's complementary that Renee mentioned, having those community conversations. As Renee mentioned, the Gwinnett Coalition is a backbone organization for the community. So they have, a seat at the table for those overarching conversations that impact all of us. Enhancing the exposure of our nonprofit community and really elevating them through funding partnerships. So if there's a grant that we can pull down based on homelessness, then can we, work collaboratively with a variety of nonprofits to help apply for and distribute those funds. Learning and development, as Renee mentioned, nonprofit positioning, which I just kind of unpacked there, but making sure that we are reminding people of and organizations of the value that nonprofits bring to our community. Serving as a resource hub, sector networking opportunities, and then volunteer development. So just making sure that we are forming those connections. So if we have connections in the community, in the business community, and the government space, and then we have nonprofits that need volunteers, well, we have corporations that also want to champion social responsibility. So how can we connect those things?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Whew. Where are you at in the process of all this right now?
Development.
Development.
Yes. So we've been behind the scenes working on it for months now. We've wrapped up on the research portion of it, and now we're in the process of the development portion of it. So once we get further along on the development perspective, because as you can imagine, this takes some time to create a quality product, we'll be going back to focus groups and kind of showcasing what we plan to provide in the future.
All right. And what's next for the Gwinnett Coalition?
Well, for the capacity building initiative with the Gwinnett Coalition, we have 501 Connect, which Renee mentioned, which is this Thursday. So that'll be one of the services that we're piloting before our launch, in addition to the nonprofit directory, which we are behind the scenes working on right now. And then we are launching in 2024. So if you want to keep up to date on everything that we have going on, you have Renee's contact information, and you have mine. And we can also add you to the e-communications for the Gwinnett Coalition so you can stay updated on our progress.
Absolutely. And I believe that we put the information in the chat there where they could register for this Thursday, correct?
Yes.
And they do have to register to come. Is that correct?
Yes, registration would be a fantastic help.
And is it at the same place that you had the last one in November?
It's not. So the last one was held at the Gwinnett Coalition office in Lawrenceville.
Right.
And we want to make sure this is accessible. And as mentioned, our county is very large. So we'll be moving these around at different locations in the county. So this one is at Tannery Row, which is in downtown Beaufort. Historic District. Yes.
Absolutely. We have 1 minute left. Ladies, I just can't tell you. I mean, we could keep talking for a long, long time. And I just very honored and privileged to be able to host both of you on WCEG Talk Radio. You are a wealth of knowledge. And for our audience and listeners, you need to get connected with these two ladies through the Gwinnett Coalition or through Collective Edge. Is that right? Right, Callie? Want to definitely get with these ladies. If you can make it out Thursday night, I apologize, I won't be there, but I look forward to being there at the next one, and look forward to maybe getting together and having lunch with you ladies when I get back in town. So with that being said, my heart loves your heart, love everything you're doing for our communities in Gwinnett County as well as the state of Georgia. So thank you, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to serve you today.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a great
Thank
evening,
you.
all.
You too.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.